So good morning, everybody who is on the call. My name is Mariah LaRolla-Wagner. I'm Michigan Justice Advocacy's Executive Director. We also have Jack Wagner, our president, and I know one of our other board members, Mary Kuziak, is also on the call this morning. So we plan to just spend a few moments to kind of walk through and give some updates, and then we'll leave the majority of the time open for your questions and what we can answer for you guys. We are recording what we are showing right now, so as we go through, this will be available later for people. If you want to look back, we'll have it on our YouTube page by tomorrow, and it'll be in this week's weekly update for you to be able to go back and look at things if there's something that you missed and you don't remember. But Jack, if you wanted to say anything or introduce yourself before we move forward.
No, just welcome. Thankful that everybody could join this beautiful Saturday morning. We appreciate you taking time out of your day to get caught up on this important topic. I hope the information that we give you today brings you up to speed, but if not, please ask questions if you have them. And even as we go along, if you have a question on your mind, go ahead and unmute your microphone and just go ahead and ask. We'll make this just like a discussion in our living room. All right, here's the first slide. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
So Mariah, did you want to talk through the information, or how would you like to?
Yeah, sure. So back on April 27th, which was our last major event, we did our lunch and learn in Lansing for lawmakers. So throughout the day, both in the morning before the lunch hour and then afterwards, we met with lawmakers one-on-one in their offices to discuss and advance the bill. That day, we were mostly focused on Republicans who we had not met with previously. So we were able to, I think it ended up being, was it 16 or 17 lawmakers we met with that day, Jack?
Well, not you and I personally, but our team together, I do believe it was over a dozen lawmakers. We scattered and split up over, I think, four groups or so.
Awesome. And I know some of you on the call were with us that day. This is, I think, meeting number 3 or 4 that we've done this year, where we spent time up in Lansing meeting with various lawmakers. So that was really successful because during the lunch hour, we brought in some really great speakers to talk about this topic in various ways. So we had over 100 lawmakers or office aides or individuals who are involved with legislative policy making in Lansing at our lunch and learn. That recording is on our YouTube channel. So that's the link there, but you can search Michigan Justice Advocacy Lunch and Learn to find that. It is a very educational presentation in regards to both the history of what does truth in sentencing and credits look like in Michigan. We had a former lawmaker speak about his position as a Republican lawmaker who's now involved in advocacy work. And then we had a former correction officer from another state who has worked in states with good time credits, really speak to the benefit of having those credits for those who are incarcerated. So for us, we got a lot of great feedback, and we had a number of offices there listening, taking notes, that maybe haven't necessarily been sponsors or co-sponsors yet for the bill, but definitely wanted to learn more about this topic. So we do have that lunch and learn recorded, so we are able to share with offices and other individuals who'd like to learn more about this topic.
And can people get to the same link through our website, or is it necessary that they have this link here?
No, they can also just go to YouTube and just search MJA Lunch and Learn. It'll pop up right at the top. That's actually where I got the link from. We do, I believe, have it on our blog posts posted on our webpage, but sometimes that can be a little bit hard for people to navigate to get to, only because we have lots of information on our webpage.
Yes.
So if you want to talk about the bill that is currently introduced, Jack, SB 649.
Yes. So I'm sorry, was there a question? No. Okay. So yeah, if people have been following the topic, back in September of last year, Senator Irwin's office introduced Senate Bill 649. This had then been referred to the committee. The committee in the Senate is called the Judiciary and Public Safety Committee, and its chairman is Senator Roger Victory. It's composed mostly of Republicans, but the two Democrats in that committee, Senator Irwin is one and Senator Stephanie Chang is the other. And they happen to both be sponsors on the bill. Senator Irwin's the lead sponsor, and then Senator Chang is one of the 9 now, maybe 10 co-sponsors on that bill. Unfortunately, that bill continues to sit in that committee, and Senator Roger Victory is the only one that can really put this on the schedule, on the agenda for a hearing. That's what we continue to ask people to do, is to reach out to Senator Victory or any of the other committee members or your own representatives in the Senate, and try and encourage them to encourage Roger Victory to put this on the agenda.
So like Jack is saying, unfortunately, it's just sitting. And the person who has the power to move it forward, Senator Roger Victory, has not really used his power to move forward a lot of pieces of legislation. So right now, there are 5 large kind of pieces of reform legislation that are also sitting. So we are in, I say this, very good company. It's not like our bill is somehow singled out and not moving forward. You can see below, there is a large bail reform package that was introduced last March or April of 21. That is currently sitting, waiting for a hearing in the House Judiciary Committee. In the Senate, in the Senate, there are 4 other large packages that are waiting. One is the police reform bill, an oversight of the women's prison, a vital documents, and the ending juvenile life without parole package. All 4 of these are sitting in the Senate Judiciary Committee. The vital documents package has thankfully had its first hearing, but has not moved on for a vote out of that committee. So these have all been introduced over the last 18 months. The way legislation works is every 2 years is a cycle. We will be coming up to the end of this cycle in December of this year. And so any bills from that current cycle, so dating back all the way to January 2021, could move forward at this point in time. If they don't move forward with hearings and votes, then they will have to be reintroduced come January 2023. Most of these package of other bills, along with our bills, that would be our plan. If they don't move forward this session, we will reintroduce in January 2023. And Jack, I think that actually leads into the next slide here.
Okay.
Oh, not yet. It's the following slide, but that's okay. So as we've cultivated these relationships with lawmakers, we are also cultivating relationships with key stakeholders. So those individuals who, if we have their support for this piece of legislation, will be important to move it forward in the public opinion and with lawmakers. But it also, if they're opposed to us and they are not on our side, can make it a very difficult road to move forward. So the 3 that we are kind of really in conversations with at the moment, one is the Michigan Coalition to End Domestic and Sexual Violence. They are a large group of individuals who have been impacted by crime that is specific to domestic assault and sexual violence. They are talking to us about which pieces of legislation, as in MCLs, or certain crimes that they are most concerned with. And to that end, they have different pieces that we are discussing how we might negotiate so that we could be on the same page, respectful of the individuals they represent who have been impacted by crime, but at the same time, moving forward our piece of legislation to benefit those who are currently incarcerated, including those who may be incarcerated for crimes that may have been connected there. So they are going to send us a list of MCLs that they would like to see addressed or discussed, and then we will continue from there having a conversation. We're not promising anything to anyone, but we really want to make sure we have this dialogue and conversation, because crime survivors are a key part of the system. And if they can be supportive and we can find a common meeting point, it would be much better for us to be able to move this piece of legislation forward. And they are very grateful that we are having this conversation, including them, because some of the previous iterations have not necessarily included them in the conversation. The second big, oh, go ahead, Jack.
I was going to say in connection with this. So I think the specific piece of legislation you're referring to is House Bill 4670, which was the productivity credits. I believe the statement that I had heard made was by this group. This group had said, well, no one ever talked to us. And I think that's probably an oversight of the lawmakers that introduced the productivity bill, that they didn't reach out and try and build this coalition. So the fact that we're talking to this group is important, as Mariah said, and it could affect the any bill that we would try and introduce in the House. So instead of introducing the exact same Senate Bill 649, but on the House side, it may become modified based on the outcome of this kind of a conversation. At least then we could say, look, we've spoken with all of these different groups, and they have given us input. So it's not like we're creating this policy and proposing and advocating for something that hasn't been discussed among the stakeholders. So just wanted to make that point about this first bullet here.
Perfect. And that kind of leads into the other key kind of stakeholders are the Michigan Correction Officers Union and then the Mackinac Center. So the Mackinac Center is a policy think tank in Lansing. It tends to be considered more conservative in nature, but they have some really, really smart people who work to collect data and educate and influence lawmakers on a variety of policy topics. And so we have met and discussed with their individual who works on justice reform kind of measures and public safety measures to have discussions. And we have also met with the Michigan Correction Officers Union. And from both perspectives, the biggest concern has been in regards to sometimes how do we make sure that this policy truly addresses any misconducts that are safety of correction officers or safety of incarcerated citizens. And not necessarily just frivolous misbehaviors. And so in those conversations, we've engaged with the Department of Correction to really understand policy and how those policy directives are written and what pieces that we can do to maybe satisfy the concerns that come from the Mackinac Center and the Michigan Correction Officer Union. Having both of these groups on board and supportive would really help move forward this piece of legislation. They both have pretty strong sways in lawmakers' ears, and they would be looked to kind of give their opinion and guidance on any piece of legislation that would affect the Department of Correction, such as a good time credit policy.
So let me try and amplify the message from the Mackinac Center, Mariah. Remind me if these are the 3 bullet points that they seem to care about, but it was number 1, I thought, was public safety. Number 2, I think, had to do with fiscal responsibility. And then number 3 was, were they interested in reentry? Did I get the 3 careabouts correct from them?
I believe that is correct, yes.
Okay. And then finally, I think, looking at the Corrections Officers Union, I think this represents a branch of law enforcement, if you will. So if we could have all 3 of these key stakeholders aligned with us in what we're trying to do, I think this would go a long way for helping the lawmakers themselves to get more on board with what we're trying to do.
So for those of you here on the call, if you have a connection in some way to one of these organizations and would like to be included in those conversations, please let us know. We would love to have you sit at the table and help bring your perspective into those conversations. I will say the Coalition to End Domestic Assault and Sexual Violence is a 30-member coalition, I believe. It's made up of organizations across the state of Michigan who help people in various stages who have been impacted by these type of crimes. So some of them range from like the YWCA on the west side of the state to more local community centers that do this type of work. So they do represent a very large piece of the crime survivor perspective here in Michigan, and engaging with them. You may not have been involved or have heard of the coalition before, but you may know one of their local member organizations and be supportive of a local member organization. And that is definitely something that we can have conversations with those local member organizations also. So that's just something to bring up to help build awareness.
Yeah, and when you say coalition here, this is a collection or coalition, right? You said 30 some odd different groups, which I imagine can make it harder to get consensus. But is there a single point of focus or a spokesman or someone that you could tell us are you engaged with? Because I suppose
Yes.
that person would be the key in getting all those groups aligned, wouldn't it?
So the way the coalition works is they actually have a set of support staff in Lansing. And so they are the people we are in contact, and they speak for the coalition as a whole when it comes to any policy and legislation. And so I'm speaking with their legislative and their lobbyists directly in regards to our legislation on behalf of Michigan Justice Advocacy, but they actually have brought this back to their committee that specifically looks at legislation. And so I'm not sure how big that committee is and how many members it is made up from different organizations, but that whole committee will steer the whole coalitions, and they speak as one in general, usually on a piece of policy.
And then one more comment on the Mackinac Center. The way I'm viewing this organization is kind of a behind the scenes, almost lobbyist, if you will, so that if we could get their support at some level, I believe they would work to contact and talk to the lawmakers about this policy, but maybe not in such a public facing manner, which would be just fantastic. It's like having free lobbyists, if you will.
Correct. They also, in some ways, have been involved in op-eds in the past or issued statements on specific pieces of policy that they are supportive or opposed to. So we always want to make sure we minimize the number of people who come out opposed to any of our pieces of legislation. And so talking and having conversations and finding common ground is always helpful to minimize opposition.
So we've spent quite a bit of time here talking about this and the previous slide. Can we pause for a moment and just see if there's any questions? I don't know if people are trying to find their unmute button. I'll give it a little bit of time. Okay.
Hi, this is Lynette.
Hi, Lynette.
Just a comment. I spoke with a person running for the Senate, Kristen Grant, and she is all about good time credit. So just in case, she's just running this election year. So
what district is that, Lynette?
She's in my district, so I don't even know. I'd have to look at my sheet.
Yeah, I know. Most people don't know their district numbers, both in the House and the Senate side. I get it. So is this a House member you're saying she's running?
She's running for Senate.
Senate.
So actually, Jack, if you go to the next slide, I believe it talks a little bit about.
Can I ask a question, please?
Oh, by all means, yes.
Go ahead, Audrey.
Is there any rationale given why Victory is not holding a hearing?
Well, if we could get his ear and get his feedback, I think we could give you an answer. Have we not tried to reach out to him already, Mariah, several times?
Correct. So I was in Lansing with the other organizations who are also awaiting a hearing about a month ago, Audrey. And the general consensus would be that Victory is mostly only holding hearings at this time before they finish for the summer recess for bills that have already passed on the House side of things. So he is pushing forward hearings only for things that have already passed in the other chamber. Nothing new is he really moving forward. most people's general opinion has been he really doesn't want to do anything to cause any disturbance in any way, shape, or form, and he just wants to ride out the rest of the time as his chair. And not super helpful, not very insightful, but unfortunately the political nature of the situation at the moment.
And where does that leave the bill?
So that actually would be on the next page that we'll talk about kind of what we see as our next steps for legislation.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So super helpful information, Lynette, for us. We have some of our interns who are tracking all of the data for elections and position on good times for candidates who are running. So we have a whole spreadsheet, and we are open to sharing that with anyone who would like some information. Right now, everything obviously is a little bit in flux because primaries don't happen till August. So some races may have 4 or 5 Dems and 3 or 4 Republicans all listed right now. And until the primary happens, we don't really know who the 2 candidates are. So come August, September, October, we will really start reaching out and talking to those who have made it through the primaries, who are running as candidates, just like you did, Lynette, A, to find out their position, but B, also to be the ones to educate them on this topic. So if that's something you are interested in doing, send us an email and we'll get you on our list. As we get into August, we will be starting to set up those meetings once we know who those candidates are. We also have the How to Talk to Your Legislator one pager. It's on our website. It was also on social media. Most of you have probably seen this before. We will be updating this by August time to even more specific. How do you talk to a candidate? A lawmaker or a legislator is already elected in office, and they're not really, they're motivated in a different way than those who are trying to earn their seat and get in there. So we'll be updating this with some more topics related to how do you really talk to a candidate and explain to them, like, I'm going to vote for you if you're supportive of this topic, and then I'm going to hold you accountable once you're in office for that support. Jack, I don't know if you have anything you'd like to mention about this.
Yeah, I know when we first started to reach out and try and advocate with lawmakers, I was a little intimidated by the idea of going to Lansing and asking this public official for a meeting. But as it turns out, it's easier than you might think. We are their employers in some regards. So there is a sense of obligation for them to meet with us, especially if you are a constituent of theirs, right? You're the person that helped vote and put them into office and could also vote them out of office. So at the very least, I would encourage people to try and get to know and reach out to their very own specific representatives, find out what districts you're in, and then find out who those representatives are, because they may win re-election. I don't know if they're all going to win. I know some are going to term out. And I think that's the case even for Roger Victory, isn't it, Mariah? Is he done?
That is my understanding, yes.
Yeah, so he won't even be in office again next year, which is kind of nice. It's a changing of the guard, but still, you want your lawmaker to know you. You want him or her to know you almost on a first name basis, so that when you call, you know, he knows who you are and he picks up the phone and listens. So I please encourage you to reach out and talk to your own lawmakers by all means.
Yes, Audrey.
I think I heard you say that you're updating this literature, How to Talk to Your Legislators.
Correct. So we will have an updated one that's like how to talk to a candidate, and that will be available late July. Our media team, graphics people are going to work on that and get us some good information to add on to there. This one obviously is still relevant, but it's only for those who are currently in office, that contact information.
Right. Can I make a suggestion? Because, for instance, Jeff Irwin is my representative, and it would be just like, you know, preaching to the choir with him. But there are other legislators, even though we're not constituents, that we could go to talk to. And Jack, like you said, sometimes it can be a little overwhelming or intimidating. At one time, I know there's a website, government website you could go to and actually look at the legislator, the background, look at who their donors are, look at how wide the margin is in terms of the votes getting them into the office, which can be helpful to bring down that intimidation or that fear, because I mean, they're human just like us. Is it possible to put those links in your how to talk to the legislators and some information about doing that?
I think we could. We've done that in preparation for specific meetings, right? Because the information you're speaking about is spread out a little bit. So the idea of gathering that all up in advance before you meet with that lawmaker is really important. That way you get to know them a little bit better ahead of time. As a matter of fact, when we met with John Roth, I remember this meeting in February, I'd done a little background on him. He's up in the Traverse City area, I think is his district. He's a Republican, and turns out he had a background in like boating and outdoors. I think he even may have ownership or interest in a marina. Well, as a kid, I grew up, around water and boating, and so right away I had bumped into him prior to our meeting in the Big B Coffee across the street from the Anderson building, and I said, "Oh, you're Representative Roth?" He said, "Yeah." And so we had a nice casual conversation in the lobby of Big B Coffee about boats before we ever got upstairs to sit down and talk about what I really wanted to talk about. That preparation was key because I didn't know that, and I couldn't find a good common ground to talk to him on outside of the specifics that I was asking him about. And it is important if you can do that ahead of time. But I think we can help provide some of those links. I know our interns had done a lot of research in advance for us, and they kind of prepared us pretty well for those first rounds of meetings, but they had to have gotten their information from somewhere, right?
Right.
Yes, I can talk to Shay as she updates the sheet and kind of where our links people can go for more background on individuals.
Yeah, I used to have the link, but when you change computers and so forth, you lose a lot of information. But I thought that was very helpful to get to know, because sometimes you want to branch out and talk to the other legislators too.
Yes, I agree. And I think in some regard, you could consider some of the like Speaker of the House or the Senate Majority Leader as also you're one of their constituents because they speak for the entire body
exactly
of legislatures. So by approaching Senator Shirkey or Jason Wentworth, I think that's a valid thing to do as well. And then you'll find some lawmakers are open to that meeting no matter who you are. And other ones are very persnickety about, are you a constituent of mine? For instance, Senator Wayne Schmidt. When we walked into Wayne Schmidt's office, and there was probably 9 of us, one of the first questions he asked was, "Oh, so who lives in our district?" And honestly, none of us could say, "Yes, that's me." It was a little awkward, but they can play that card if they want.
I just think if we get better at that, there's more power if we as the people would get better at that. But the work that you all do in helping us to get better at that is very important. And it's just not merely, having a Zoom meeting and talking about it, but actually, doing the trainings, putting that information out there, organizing people to do that. I just don't see enough of us doing it.
That's great input. You're spot on. And like I said, I relied on our interns because I'm busy, I'm fully employed, during the day. And so when we go up there for a meeting, I didn't have a lot of time to prepare. It was nice when our interns put together those packages of background information on the people we were meeting.
Yep. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that input.
On the next slide, Jack actually kind of leads into where are we hoping to go from here. So, so we are working with some House members for a House introduction. We have had a lot of discussions with them. We had hoped we would introduce the bill before the summer recess started, but given the conversations that we were having both with the coalition and then with the lawmakers, we are thinking we're going to probably try and push this to after the November 2022 election. And there are a couple reasons for that. First, a lame duck introduction will allow us to have representatives who are leaving to sign their names. So they didn't win their election. They're still in office right now. They're finishing up, and it's kind of like, well, who cares? I'll put my name down here. I do support it because it doesn't affect their election chances. Secondly, if we introduce in November and we get the piece of legislation to have the wording that we would like to, with any modifications that may make us negotiations to make every party of stakeholder that we mentioned before on the same page, it would allow us to quickly reintroduce then January 2023. So if we introduce it in November and then it doesn't move in that month there, we can reintroduce the exact same piece of legislation with the same wording then early into January 2023. Finally, we are also working with some of these different pieces of lawmakers and some other organizations on a package of re-entry bills. So these bills are focused on a few different things: housing, jobs, identification, making sure that people are ready to get their training and have all the classes they need so that they can be released at their earliest release date. And so making sure all of those pieces of legislation are written and satisfy the needs that we are asking for. We want to make sure we give time for that to occur. And if we can introduce the re-entry bills at the same time we introduce the good time bill, it allows for Republicans to sign on to this package of bills that is really a reform set of bills. We are preparing so that more people can be released sooner, and we are preparing so that the system can take those people who are being released sooner and have the resources. So I'll pause there for a second because that was a bit of information. I don't know if anyone has questions about that.
Are you saying there's a reentry bill?
There will be a package of reentry bills in a variety of topics. So you may be part of the, may have been invited to the My Semi is having a meeting in July to discuss some of bills that may be coming.
Yeah.
So it will be working with some of those bills that they are working on. We have some conversations of some bills that some lawmakers would like to bring forward. And so we're trying to coordinate to make sure this re-entry package of bills is all in a good place so that we can introduce good time at the same time.
Now, they won't be linked together. We're not going to tie bar the bills, but it gives the optics of, hey, this is all part of a single package where all these lawmakers have come to some level of agreement on. And if you have some Republicans who may not sign the good time bill itself, but they signed another bill that's in that package, the optics there look different, right? That kind of brings along maybe some other Republicans or conservatives in support. And that's what I was going to say something too, Mariah, about waiting until after this election. There are folks like Rep. Markinen who has said, look, if I'm back in my seat, I will support this. All right. So he's a Republican from the UP, and this would give us a chance to test him on that, right? It's a lame duck session. He can put his name on that, and then he should, in theory, be willing to support it when it gets reintroduced in the next session.
Jack, this is Lynette. I have just a comment about the package and, getting the classes they need, etc. So I can just say that is really needed because my son every month asks about what classes do I need? Can I get started? I have a job. And he's told, 2 years from your ERD is when we start this,
Yeah.
every single
Wow.
time.
Yeah, this is an ongoing issue.
So they're ready. They're ready to start once they get in, and it's against the philosophy of the MDOC, who says, from the day you enter, we're planning your release.
But
Yeah.
that's not happening.
And
Correct.
so
that's why-
this is one of those things that we are hoping to make better. I cannot promise that we will fix the issue. It's a large systemic issue, but in the conversations that we are having with the different representatives, this is one of those things that we are working to make improvements. And so there is MySemi, which is a coalition here in Michigan to end mass incarceration. They are hosting a event for a bunch of organizations who do reentry work in July. And so we're taking some of the feedback from those organizations. We're having the conversations with the lawmakers, and we're just trying to make the best pieces of policy that we can. And unfortunately, that takes time in getting people in the room. And so we don't want to rush this. And that's part of the reason we're looking to wait till November to do it right.
No, that's totally fine. And hopefully there can be conversations with the administration in MDOC.
That's the goal.
Hi, my name is Whitney, and I was wondering, like, how do you make people aware of like good time? Because like it's a few people that I know, they're not even aware of it. Like they never heard of it. They don't even have a petition, of it. They have every petition besides the good time.
To
Go on.
piggyback on that, do you all have the numbers in terms of the petitions that they did collect? Did you all get those numbers?
No, that was organized by Michigan United.
Right,
and the
right.
Liberty and Justice for All Coalition. They didn't, as far as I know, they did not share the actual numbers publicly.
Okay.
No, but they didn't get enough signatures.
No,
Well, we
but
know that.
right.
but-
What we want to know is just how big was the support? Just how many people in the state care about
Right.
the topic? The number would still be important to know.
Right.
And Whitney, to kind of circle back to your question of how do we educate and talk people and tell them about good times. So there are a few pieces of literature that we have. So we have actually postcards, they're front and back sided, that are topics of here's the information about good time. So if you are interested in getting some of those, go ahead and send us an email, contact@mijustice, and we can get some to you. We'll coordinate to get you a handful of those postcards so you can share with friends and family and people you know to talk about it. Also, invite people to like our Facebook page. We post a lot of information on our Facebook page and our Instagram and our Twitter, and it just really gives information about what are we working on, how is this related, and how do we push this forward. And then in regards to the ballot initiative, Michigan Justice Advocacy was not running or organizing the ballot initiative this year. Michigan United was the organization, like Jack mentioned, who was pushing this forward with their coalition. And so we were supporting and sending people their direction, but the petition is separate from the pieces of legislation. There are two different routes of how laws get made. And so for this year, unfortunately, the petition route is not moving forward, but our bills and our pieces of legislation could still move forward. So that's why we're really working on this education of lawmakers, but at the same time, educating the public so that we can be informed when we're electing candidates to make sure those candidates are going to be able to support this legislation.
Mariah, I'm on my cell phone, so, it's not easy using a cell phone, but are you able to put the MJA site in the chat? I don't know if this has a chat or not.
Yep, I'll put it in there right now. And I'll also put in our email address that people can email us. We did touched on this next topic, Jack, but if you want to go ahead and just talk about that one in regards to kind of where we are with SB 649 and what options we have to push that forward.
Yeah, so my personal goal is to get a meeting with Senator Jim Runestad. I've already made connections with him on a couple of different fronts related to business. We expect Senator Runestad to become the chairman. But what I simply want to know is what's preventing this topic from moving forward? Just give me an honest assessment. Why are we not moving forward? What are the roadblocks? Who are the challenges? Where are the challenges coming from? So my personal goal is to meet with those Republicans. Vanderwall would be another one I'd like to meet with. Runestad. I don't know about meeting with Roger Victory because I think we're of the opinion that he's already acting somewhat like a lame duck chairman who doesn't want to move anything forward, not just our bill, but still getting the back story from these people is my personal goal. That's what I'd like to find out. The bill is what it is. It's out there. People can read it now, but why are they not moving it forward is the question I want to start asking.
I think that's great, Jack. I do. Yeah, the more, the better.
Yeah.
Who's talking to them?
Yeah, just finding time to meet with these folks. But as I said, I've established a relationship with Runestad's office, and I want to try and exploit and leverage that. From a business standpoint, I'm involved with his office. From a company standpoint, we're building a company in his district. And so he's already reached out and connected me with some meetings. As I mentioned, probably before this started, I was at a meeting this past Monday night with him, Lieutenant Governor Garland Gilchrist, Senator Stephanie Chang, but it was on a business topic. So it was hard for me to get their ear and talk to them about this. Nonetheless, part of politics is making and building this network and connection with people. And I have an agenda. I want to meet with him. That's my plan. I'm sticking to it.
And for others, it is kind of the same thing. We want to reach out to the current senators and ask them, will they put their name on this after the November 2022 election? So in that lame duck, the way the Senate works, a senator could sign their name up all the way to the last day before this gets voted. And so we want to talk to senators and ask them to sign on to this bill. And like we mentioned before, if they win their re-election, great. If they lose their re-election, great, because at that point their fate is sealed and they can move forward and sign up without having an effect on what their election outcome is. They can't turn around and say, well, because I supported this, people didn't vote for me. It's over.
Yeah,
the votes have already been cast. That's
the way Rep Markkinen couched it to me was, after he knows he has his seat, he said he would sign this thing without question. So if that's the case, I think part of asking for signatures and statements post-election is to say, all right, we're testing you on this. You said you would. It wouldn't be any harm to put your name on it if you're already leaving office, and that sends a message to others who come after you. And for those that are sticking around, put your money where your mouth is. Let's see.
So is your approach for individuals to go talk to legislators during lame duck, or are you have you thought about organizing people who would be interested in doing that?
Yes, we will plan after the election to do another Lansing Legislative Day and get some meetings on the book. Ideally, those people who are currently in office, we will cross paths with anyone who is a candidate during the August, September, October timeframe. And then we can come back to bug them again after they get reelected. And so we will be coordinating end of November, early December, a Lansing Legislative Day for people to meet with those lawmakers.
And don't forget the summer session summer recess, if you will. So people are done, I think, at the end of this month. they'll be back in their home districts. So in some cases, for people who live far from Lansing and really can't make the trip all that conveniently, when your lawmaker comes back into district and they're there all summer, you may be in a better place to get a meeting with them than, say, us. If it's a representative all the way up in Traverse City or further in the UP, for those of you on the phone, if you're that far away, that's the time to get a hold of your lawmaker, is when they're back home.
Perfect. Perfect.
And then just the last bullet point here is we plan to reintroduce both pieces of legislation. So the one we are introducing in the House in lame duck, and the one that currently exists in the Senate early of 2023. So we are going to aim to get some of those newly elected lawmakers, some of them who will be candidates we are meeting with later this year, some of them who may be new and we didn't get to meet with, we're going to try and meet with early in 2023. And then we're also going to do another lunch and learn like we did this past April. Really sit down, educate those new lawmakers in their offices on this topic. Nothing like some lunch to get people into the room. And then with that introduction and that education, hopefully we will have a lot more names signed up when we do that reintroduction and be able to push that forward. Now, granted, a lot of this is all politics and we don't know where the cards will be dealt until after November. And so these are some of our longer term plans that we will adjust timing wise as needed once we kind of get a better picture of the landscape.
Yeah, now, just like the lawmakers needed an education and still need an education, MJA has been learning as we go. And I think the timing of a lunch and learn in January is key, because you have new lawmakers, they've just come into office, they need to get their bearings, they need to understand the topics. And this would be right at the beginning of their 2-year legislative session, to sit down with them in January and give them a good education on this topic. We did not know that when we got started. We weren't familiar with the cadence of schedules that our legislative sessions keep. So when we started in 2020, we didn't know to get in there early in 2021. Our opponents did. We know that the Prosecutors Association got in there bright and early and made their statements to the legislators in January. So we also want to get right on their top of their minds at the beginning of their legislative session.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We have about 5-10 minutes left, so we'll just open it up. Just people have questions. Are there things we can answer for you at this time?
I just want to thank you both for this update. I really appreciate it. Also, thank you for the work that you're doing.
Thank you, everybody, for your time today. We really appreciate it. If you need postcards from us, we still have some postcards available. So reach out to us and we can coordinate to get you some more of our postcards from last summer. And keep a lookout for that updated one-pager of how to talk to a candidate coming late July.
Fantastic.
Have a good afternoon today.
Thank you all.
Enjoy the nice
Be
summer
blessed.
Michigan weather.
Okay. Bye-bye.